Hey guys, I recorded a video for this a couple days ago, but some stuff with recording didn't go well, so I'm re-recording it, and I'm also adding some stuff that I wouldn't have added in the original one. So let's get to it. So this tutorial is about the scene management in Unity and how you can load and save a scene hierarchy in edit mode. All right. Now, this is still very useful because the application mode of saving and loading doesn't work in editor, so you wouldn't actually see the changes. This game is just, I mean, this Unity is its own special thing, isn't it? So there's four main parts to this. Okay, so well, in the scripts, four main scripts, but with the actual Unity hierarchy, I would recommend that you make well, it's pretty much required, you make a master scene. Okay, this is going to be your scene 0 slot. Okay, and then in this master scene is where you're going to add, drag and drop from your scenes tab all your other scenes. Now, I would recommend, now this is a recommendation, but it just makes sense to me, is the second scene in your hierarchy. So, so slot 1 would be whatever your load screen is going to be. And then the second one would be login. And then just whatever levels. This particular MMO that I'm trying to make is a space MMO, and I want to be able to have a selection screen, which this is going to get overridden by other scenes. So I'm gonna, have the tutorial level for the very first sign in, and then you're gonna select what planet you want to play in the solar system, and then you're gonna go to your main base, and then you're gonna launch from whatever planet you're from. And just the first working planet I'm using is just gonna be Mars. All right, so how you do this is you got to make a master scene. I would say load and save call, or I just called it the master scene loader, but whatever, as long as it makes sense to what you're doing. So, oh shit, what am I doing? All right, I almost clicked it. So what you do is, here we go. I need master scene loader because this is the one in the second. Master scene loader. Here we go. So this part's very important, and this is another thing that I missed on my first recording. So for anything that uses Unity Editor, it's very important that you make the if statement if Unity Editor, okay? And then you end if in anything that is not using the editor, okay? Now, I end it after serializable because for some reason serializable throws a fit. So I ended the if after I make this class serializable. And then I also end the if, start an if and end an if on the public scene setup declaration, because this is another Unity editor scene management. Okay, so for the editor side of this, you're going to want to be using Unity editor scene management. Okay, and then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be writing in a public scene setup. Public scene setup is, as it kind of says, is an array of scene setups. Okay, and then this is going to be called my setup. Now you could make this public on a mono behavior and then try to run it, but I really wouldn't recommend doing it that way. And then you don't want this to inherit from mono behavior. You want this to inherit from scriptable object, okay? Because we're going to be writing this as an asset, as a scene asset later. So it needs to be a scriptable object. Okay, so now we go to the master scene loader save handler. And this one, you want to have the if statement start on if Unity editor and end after the execute in edit mode, because execute in edit mode is an Unity editor declaration. And then the mono behavior obviously is just Unity engine. And so you want to have Unity engine outside of the if editor statement. And then you have to have your public scene master loader declaration also outside of any if Unity editor hashtags. Okay. So then the first thing that we're going to write is a public void, because we need to grab it from other scripts, and it's just the easiest way, because this only works in the editor anyways, so it doesn't really matter on variable security and stuff like that. So this is first checking to see if you have a master scene setup, okay? If this is not equal to null, so that means there is something, a scriptable object that this can reference, then it's going to say I'm going to be loading this scene setup, okay? And it's going to be editing a editor scene manager, and it's going to be restoring the scene manager setup, which is actually something Unity provides. And you're going to be restoring a what? Well, you're going to be restoring the master scene the master scene setup. The array of the scenes is what you're restoring. Now, when you're saving it, this is when you're writing and you're telling it what the master scene is going to be, because you're creating an instance of the master scene loader, which is a scriptable object. Hence why you need to have a scriptable object for writing it as an asset. So we're going to be master scene setup.mySetup, okay? And this array is going to equal to a editor scene manager dot get scene manager setup. So instead of restoring it, we're getting the setup. And this getting function serializes it, because I looked it up a little bit more after, because when I was trying to figure out how to load an application, I did more research and figured out what this is. So it's just serializing in a way that the thing will understand. And then now that it's ready to become something, we have to look at the serialization. And right now, this should always return false, because we're not making duplicates. And if asset database.contains a master scene setup is equal to false, then we're going to write one. And it should always equal false, unless you're making duplicates. And I don't see, I explain why, like with version control or holiday events, why maybe you want to do that. And you might have like a reference to all the assets that are saved in this particular folder, and then it iterates through them and counting them. And then you have another integer like j, and then when you're declaring the file path, you would say plus j. Well, j would equal I, but it iterates through all of the list of files, and then j would be I plus 1, right? So that way it creates a new iteration. And then that way you could have like holiday maps that pop up, during the holidays. I'm really tired right now. You got to forgive me. This has been so stressful trying to design this, because there's so many problems that I didn't see coming when it comes to the way that Unity just does a really bad job at handling certain things, and then Mirror is really bad at handling certain things. So it's just been like a mess trying to figure out how to design an MMO with these two applications. All right, and so we're going to be, we want to log to make sure that no directory was found. And we're going to be attempting to build one. And we're going to be building one in the asset database. And we're going to be creating an asset. And this asset type is going to be a master scene setup obviously, a serializable object. And then we're going to declare a path. And this path is going to equal what it equals in your asset folder. So in my asset folder in project, it's scene master scene loading, and it's save setups. So you make folders with very particular names, and then you get the directory in here, okay? And so the directory has to match what you put in the actual game project. And then this is going to equal the game object scene name. And then you're going to just put setup or whatever you want, dot asset. The asset is important though. So you don't have to say setup, you just put dot asset, but the asset's important. And then it should save whatever you have. And then the next part of it has to do with the GUI, because on default, Unity Editor will not write buttons for this kind of stuff. So you have to write it yourself. I always get confused with these symbols for some reason. So where, here, let me just grab it from the, there we go. Now this is another one with some tricky if Unity Editor statements, okay? Basically, this whole thing is just a if Unity Editor, okay? So wrap this whole thing in if Unity Editor, because there's nothing that's going to be grabbing on application load, because it's a GUI. So none of this will ever be used in an application, just in the editor. So you're going to be writing a custom editor, and it's going to be a type of, and then obviously you got to reference the script that's actually executing the save and load. So in my case, the name is master scene load save handler. And then this is going to be a public class, and we're just going to, you know, whatever the name. And this is going to be a type of editor, okay? And then we're going to execute the base on Inspector GUI, but we're going to be overriding it as well. So public override void on Inspector GUI. And then we're going to be drawing a default inspector, and we're going to be drawing on a reference to our master scene load save handler, and then we're going to be equaling this as a target. Okay, so what are we going to be looking at in the panel that's going to be targeted by this? And that's just going to be that. I think it's a bit redundant, but whatever. And so then, if the GUI layout is a button and it's pressed, then we're going to execute our reference, and we're going to execute the save, you know, the save function, and then we just name our button here that listens to be pressed, and I just named it save master scene build, and then the other button that executes the load function is just going to be called load mass. One second. I just realized I put that uppercase, and it's just driving me crazy. I can't believe I didn't really notice it until now. And for some reason, there we go. Okay, and save. And so this, in the actual editor, will save and load the scene build. But when you're hitting play mode from in the editor, it won't. All the scenes will unload. Just Unity being Unity. So in order to solve that, when all this whenever I'm allowed to click, I'll click. Holy crap! Come on, seriously. Why is it it's reloading all the script assemblies because I changed to a lowercase a, and it's taking a minute to do this. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, come on. Yeah. Come on. Alright, so where is it? No, why does it fuck? I didn't double kick, you piece of shit. Alright, here we go. Whoa, okay, now my mouse is just clicking or something. I'm just... What the fuck? 1 second, guys. I don't know if it's my mouse or the Unity. Alright, so we need to make one more script in order to launch all these scenes in as a build on runtime from Unity Editor, so for testing purposes, okay? And this one, you will be using Unity Engine. So you're going to have one clause that stands out for that. And then you're going to need to bracket, though, the parts that are using Unity Editor. Which I think is the whole thing. Yeah. I encased the whole thing. I figured this out because all of this was working. And then when I was trying to launch the application earlier today, I kept getting these red errors. And I kept, like, trying to figure out why. And then I was like, oh, so I got to enclose just as an if Unity editor to build it. And then I tried to build it, and I was getting other errors at build. So this took forever to figure out. But I've skimmed through it with my brain so many times that it's just hard for me to keep up with everything. So, you know, my brain is just totally jumbled right now. All right, so we're going to be using Unity Editor and Unity Editor Scene Management. And that's about it for this one, and this is pretty simple, quick, and dirty. We're going to need to initialize an onload attribute, okay? Now, we don't need to have attribute anymore. I guess that's obsolete from the documentation I read on the Unity website. So it's not actually required anymore, but it doesn't read it out if you put attributes. I just kept it in. So this needs to be a public static class, because this is going to be not changing at all during the runtime, but it's going to initialize, right? And we need to be persistent, kind of, during load, during runtime. And so the static class is just going to obviously be the name, and this isn't going to inherit from anything. So it doesn't have a mono behavior attached to it. It's just itself doing some stuff from the editor. And so we're going to have another static scene initializer. And oh, you know what? I forgot to be moving my head so you guys could see all this. I'm sorry, I'm just really messed up. I'm gonna commit to this because I'm not recording this again. It's like the 4th time, and every time it takes like 30 minutes for me to record this, and I just like completely I'm getting more and more brain numb like every time I try to do this again. So we got a static master scene initializer, and this is going to be using the editor application, and it's going to be looking for if the play mode state is changed, okay? And this is going to be plus equal to the load master scene hierarchy. So it's meaning it's taking the default change and it's adding this to it, okay? And what we're going to be adding as a static void, so another persistent, and this load master scene hierarchy, which is just the name, you know, you can name whatever you want, is looking for a play mode state change, so state. So if the state is equal to exiting edit mode, this is just for conveniency. You can skip this if you want. Is do you want to save modifications to a scene that you've been using, right? Which is useful because we're dealing with multiple scenes on the same hierarchy. So I program this in, but this is just because I'm all over the place mentally. It's really hard for me to focus. So it's just easier to help do a little bit of stuff to help me do this stuff kind of thing. So this is skippable, but there we go if you need it. All right, and then the next thing is if the state is equal to play mode change and you entered play mode, then what we need to do is we need to make a variable, okay? And this is load an asset hierarchy, which is just the name I made because it's simple. And this is going to equal to an asset database dot load asset at path. And what we're loading is a scene asset, which luckily has a configuration in editor, not in play mode, not in Unity Engine, not after 6 years that I looked at the last forum post that was asking people how to load this kind of stuff on application run. It's amazing that after 6 years they haven't come up with a solution for this. Well, direct the solution. There's workarounds, obviously, but nothing Unity provided. Okay, and so we need to copy and paste the same asset, obviously, that we're going to be loading from on load save handler. And this is going to be loading what? A editor scene manager, which is going to be which is playing from play start mode scene. So when we hit play, the start scene, and this is going to equal to our array of loaded scene assets, the file of it, the asset of it anyways, and then debug.log. So it works just fine. So let me give you an example, hopefully I don't mess this up, on what would normally happen with Unity. So nothing's working, what the fuck? Alright, so what would normally happen with Unity, okay, is when you play it, now this is the build from yesterday, but it still works, so let's just show you what I'm talking about. Even if you do absolutely nothing wrong, this is what Unity does when it plays a game. It goes into play mode usually. It unloads everything and then tries to load things into order. So if you don't have a specified order, this is what it would do on edit or runtime, okay? Now, my computer is it's going really slow, but you get the idea. But this, what I did show you does work in this. So if we go to clear project, let's just save this because I don't know if I've saved it. Save master scene build. All right, Control C. Now let's go into project. Let's go into scenes, and then I'll just click login menu. Look what happens. Okay. Now I'm gonna go back into master scene and see everything's been wiped. So I have to load the master scene build and see everything pops back out the way it's supposed to. So that's the reason that we have to do all that, because Unity won't save a hierarchy of scenes. So if we hit play in Unity Editor, this will work right. So it does not work from an application, which I'm making this series for this too. I'm actually posting this on the Unity forums towards a guy named Alfish, because he has a workaround using a struct, which puts in a string and an integer, which basically the string is going to represent the asset's GUID, and then the struct is just the index for whatever the scene is. Now, I already looked into Unity for this, and it was already a solution I seen, but my brain is just so conjumbled with all this that it just does not make any sense to me anymore. And I probably, when I wake up in the morning, I'm able to do it by myself if I don't have any help yet. But oh yeah, I forgot to shit. Game Unity. Oh yeah, it did unload that. That's just something I accidentally forgot to do quick. All right, so go back to maximize on play. Game. Oh yeah, game window. And then let's start a host. Shows the button, and then we load into our scene. Now this is all done online, so just to let you know, I'm trying to do a list. I'm doing debug testing, and also I have 2 cameras that got loaded, so just don't mind it. But basically, I have the scene changing on over network, so that's a good sign, I guess. But the reason I'm still debugging a couple things, because one problem I'm coming into is if I create everything into a prefab, it does load when I change the active scene. But if there's scene saved objects I want to already have in there that have networking capacity, so basically what I want is the base itself has a small base. Will be a prefab later on, but in the early stages of the game, I only had enough time to build one version anyways, and so what I want to do is I just want to have everyone have access to the same test base, and then everyone sees it individually, and then the only thing that gets updated through prefab is going to be what base parts you're upgrading, right? That will change for the individual player. And so it's just easier for me not to have to prefab all this and to build in spawn in like little spawn machines that will like have a network identity for the scene that they're on, and then they spit out by scene ID, and then they start pumping out the level. It's just so inconvenient for testing, so I'm trying to figure out a way to get this to work with just turning on the loaded scenes. And so that's the only thing I have left to figure out on the network end when it comes to like scene loading, and then like everything else I already know how to do. So once I get down that hurdle, the networking side is done, and then I can get to all the fun stuff like making 3D objects and like actually building levels. This has just been a nightmare. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll be giving a tutorial, an updated tutorial, if Alfish isn't able to get back to me with a detailed explanation, or he doesn't make his own YouTube video. And then if I have to, I'll just make one myself when I figure out how to serialize the structs in the editor, and then have that load as a scene when the game starts. Which I think I already know how to do it. Is what I'm going to do is I would make a struct that would have string and integer, so like to be for the index, and then the scene name would be the string, and then the index would be the index in the hierarchy would be the integer. And then I would type in the scene name and integer, and then it would search through the scenes and say that if the scene name matches this, then I'm going to put this scene at this integer that it's been referenced to in the struct. Do you get what I'm saying? So that's one way I can think of doing it, but I don't really know if that's going to save in all the assets and all the game objects, so I'd much prefer getting Alfish's plugin to work. Because, like I said, I've sometimes the simple-minded way that I think I'm stupid just isn't good for long-term stuff. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know I said that before, but I'll catch you guys later, and I'll have links to my Discord for this game in the link, and if you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Laters.